Flosstube. My name's Jess. I'm CrossStitch Jess here on Flosstube and over on Instagram. My pronouns are she and her, and this is going to be an update on my stitching for the last few weeks. If you're new, welcome. In general, this channel is about cross stitch. There may be some knitting coming up, but no promises. And yeah, like this regular update, I am going to talk a little bit about what's been going on in life in general. I don't have a top tip or tool today. I've just not been organised enough to have one. I don't know, maybe one will occur to me partway through, we'll see. And then the majority of what I have to show you is my March Madness update. So my previous update was about 2.5 weeks ago, I think. Maybe almost 3 actually. And that was sort of round 1 of March Madness. I have the rest to show you all the way up to and including the winner. And that's pretty much been it for the last 3 weeks, if I'm honest. There's not really been, like, I've not done any more new starts, I've not had any finishes, it's just been chaos stitching on a different thing every day. Which, yeah, I'll come back around to, but I'm kind of glad it's finished now. I enjoyed it, but I'm glad to just stitch on what I want. And then yeah, I've got a bit of upcoming plans. If I'm looking over here, it's because my tablet with my notes is low battery and my cable isn't long enough to have it hopefully in front of me. Yeah, feeling a little bit chaotic today, but if I don't do this now, I genuinely don't know when I would, so we're gonna roll with it. Please bear with me. So what has been going on in life in general? Work has been really busy. The project I'm on has been quite intense. And I think it's going to continue being quite intense. I think it, like, coincidentally falling in a month where I'm not just stitching what I fancy for relaxation maybe didn't help. It is what it is. We'll keep rolling with it. On a sort of relevant to Flosstube note though, for anyone who has been with me from the start or who has gone back and watched my very first episode, I talked a little bit about my reason for starting and wanting to get better at presenting, more comfortable with it, and a lot of that was because of something that happened yesterday. So I have been at conference for the first part of this week. It's not a big conference. There were maybe 80 to 100 people there tops. Yeah, so not huge, but people who share my very niche specialism, either in, like, there were a lot of academics there, but also people from a consulting sort of background. And one of the things, like, the reason this all ties back to Flosstube is me and a colleague were due to present a paper that we'd written. And when I say a paper, I mean it is, I can't see why it wouldn't, but it is due to go on to actually be published in, like, an academic journal publishing sense. So I've never done anything like this before. My colleague has, so he's like a supremely relaxed, or he comes across as supremely relaxed anyway, kind of person, so I don't think presenting it was a big deal for him, but I was very nervous, and this was exacerbated when on day 2 of the 3-day conference he was unfortunately called away and I ended up presenting solo, which again didn't help my nerves. But I think something I've realised both from that original presentation that prompted me to come and start Flosstube and from doing Flosstube is that, for me at least, there's quite often a disconnect between how I feel when I'm presenting and how other people, like, how I come across. And seemingly I come across as very cool, calm and collected even when I feel like I'm tripping over my own words, and I'm panicking that I'm going to forget to say something, I think I'm really good at giving other people the advice that, like, no one knows what you planned to say. So if you forget something, no one else is going to know that you've missed it out. And to just roll with it. I think maybe I need to take my own advice on that. But it went really well. I got some really lovely feedback. Yeah, it was definitely, the anticipation was worse than the presenting. I think I still do have that anxiety in the moment, but I guess the more I do it, the better it'll be. So yeah, I guess thank you to the Flosstube community for... You quite alright, Alfie? You alright? He's being very cuddly because I've been away for 3 days. But yeah, like, I'm really grateful for this space and the fact that it's such a safe space to have done this and to figure it out. I think there's obviously quite a big difference between sat here in my living room with Alfie curled up next to me talking to my phone. Like, I even feel weird doing this if John comes downstairs. Versus standing in front of a room. Like, to be fair, it wasn't the whole conference I was presenting to. Like, there were 3 parallel, like, tracks of talk, so you kind of picked which of the 3 you wanted to go to. But doing this in a room with, like, an actual, like, holding a microphone kind of set up with, like, probably about 35 people listening was very nerve-wracking. I just need to remember that it's fine and how I'm coming across is fine, even if I just need to get my inside brain box to sort of catch up with that. So I appreciate that's a bit of a tangent, but I'm really glad to be here and to have done this, because I think I would have struggled a lot more, especially with the last minute nature of doing it solo, and having to pick up the half of a presentation that I hadn't prepared for. So yeah, thank you to everyone in this community for having made me feel so comfortable and welcome, and for your encouragement and lovely words when I have expressed my nervousness about my presenting. I could not have done what I did yesterday without all of you, so thank you. What else has been going on in life? So I have had a few goodies in the post that I wanted to share. So I need to message her to say thank you, but I guess this is that thank you. I got a lovely birthday card in the post from Jess, the librarian stitch lady, and a cute little pair of scissors, a sticker, because I know she's joined my birthday stitch along with a scissor themed project. So thank you, Jess. This was really lovely to come home from the conference too yesterday. And my husband was very confused why I was getting post from the US, which, I mean, always fun to confuse the husband. I also wanted to thank Liz. So Liz won one of my giveaways a couple of episodes ago. Does that have a side of it that I can show that isn't pattern? Nope, that is pattern on all 4 pages. But she very kindly sent me, can I show just the label, a love poppet robin pattern, and Seaside Tiny Town as a thank you for sending her prize. So I've been wanting to do another love poppet for a while. I've got you can probably just see here this green fabric project is the Dreaming of Summer Sow that I did last year, and I've been really wanting to try one of the tiny towns. So yeah, perfect choices. Thank you so much, Liz. And then last thing that I have acquired was from Lindsay at Wolfie Stitches. She's been having a bit of a clear out and a declutter, and I spotted this as one of her options. I think that there are a couple on here that I really like, but it's called Little Bits for Stitches, and it's like a sort of vintage style pattern. And the ones I liked were I Came, I Saw, I Stitched, Unstitched, Unstitched. Blessed are the poor, for they shall not become addicted to cross stitch. and then sing a song of cross stitch, a pocket full of floss, 4 and 20 projects all over the house, which I think my husband would agree to. Although I'm fairly good at not having them all over the house, but yeah, really love that. Definitely going in my meta cross stitch project queue. Although I probably need to do some finishing of the stuff I've already started before I get to that point. I do not need any more meta cross stitch whips at this exact moment in time. If I'm being honest, I'll show you the project bag when I get to it. It's got 7 in it. Anyway, okay. March Madness. I've done some Lowry wrangling so that my tablet's a little bit more helpfully positioned. On my last update, I talked through round 1, which was getting us from 32 projects down to 16, and I worked on each of those 16 on the day that it won its match. What I'm going to do for logistics is I'm just going to talk through round 2 and show you again like the Instagram story, the result of the Instagram story, and then when I get to round 3 I'm going to keep talking through them but show you the loser each time, so that the winner overall you only see at the very end, rather than being like showing you the same project 3 times because it won in 3 different rounds. So round 2 top 16 which is still nuts to me. I can't believe I've done this the way I've done it, but I'll come back to that at the very end. So day 17 was Beyond the Horizon, which is my oldest whip, one of my big full coverages, versus Gamer, my biggest full coverage. And from round 1, one of the really sort of consistent trends is whichever project was bigger tended to win. You guys did not disappoint, you stuck with that. So on this one, Gamer won and sort of carried on that trend. Day 18, we had Books Are Magic versus the Lorna Lane B from Gecko Rouge. This is where that whole biggest project wins thing went completely out the window. It was a complete landslide towards Books Are Magic. You guys were very... I mean, to be fair, Books Are Magic looks better in the sense that I'm further through it, whereas B at the moment is just a sort of a random blob of a few colours. So yeah, Books Are Magic went on and B was knocked out for now. Day 19 we had Greenhouse of Oddities versus the Mill Hill Aurora project. Greenhouse won, but I did actually work a little bit more on Aurora later in the month. I think just because I needed something really simple and low effort. So I'll show you that one quickly. I think I've done all of this light blue is new. I think I was basically working across. I probably finished this dark blue, added in this light blue around the edge, and then figured I might as well colour complete that. I think this dark blue and this dark blue are both colour completed already, so I kind of figured, seeing as that's happened with working across, I might as well carry on picking a colour in and just rolling with it. So I'm really enjoying this though, more so now that I've got it digitally. I find it much easier to work from a digital pattern than a paper one. So that's that. Pop things away as I go, because with 9 projects to show you I'm gonna lose my sanity otherwise. So where were we? That was day 19, so that's the third match of round 2. Next up we had Twisted Band Sampler versus Flosstube Friends, and this was another like really clear winner. Twisted Band very much smashed it, which I was excited by, because whilst this was happening in parallel I've been digitizing the pattern, so manually, and this did take a while, I'll be real, so did like using charting software to sort of redraw everything from the pattern into a digital format so I can mark it off as I go. Yeah, So that took a while, but it was very much making me want to stitch on this. Next up, day 21, we had Lakeside Cabin. It was kind of a cabin off, so Lakeside Cabin versus Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods won, and instead of this being a stitching, I think if anything I unstitched on this day and unpicked what I had already done, the very small amount. This was my third attempt at re-dyeing this piece of fabric, bearing in mind it was already dyed when I bought it, so this has now been through 4 rounds of being hand dyed, but we got there, we finally got there. So I'm glad, and I'm happy with how it's come out, so it was worth the iterations to get to what I wanted. The next day we had Love, which is another big project by Gecko Rouge, versus Light Sampler from my Meta Cross Stitch, which is now Forest. This one, there was literally 1 vote in it, and I think from memory when I first woke up it was actually a tie, and I just sort of waited for 1 more vote to come in, and whoever that last vote was got to be the tiebreaker. So Love made it, but only by a hair's breadth. The next day was Into a Spiral from Plastic Little Covers versus Okea, which is another one of the Meta Cross Stitch projects, one that I'd started earlier in the month. This one was actually a tie, and it was a tie in the sense that the story had timed out, so there were going to be no more votes, so I just picked my favourite, to be honest. And I was really enjoying the Meta Cross Stitch projects, especially because lots of them have, like, the majority of what they are is text, so it's quite satisfying just getting a whole word done in one sitting, or a whole phrase done in one sitting, so carried on with that one. And then the last pairing for round 2 was the Double Hoop Owl versus There Is Room, and I really love both of these projects, so it was another one where there was only 1 vote in it, and it actually yo-yoed back and forth several times during the day. I'm really glad that this wasn't a tie, because I would have really struggled to choose. But Owl won it by a hair's breadth, and went on to the next round. So I'm going to attempt to put into a proper bracket structure now that we're down to 8. So hopefully you'll be able to see somewhere on screen, one side or the other, the 8 that are left in, and then how that will filter down to a winner, and I'll sort of update that as we go through these next ones. So round 3, the first pairing was Gamer versus Books Are Magic. Books Are Magic won, and I did work on it that day, but I then had to retire it from the competition because I reached the point with this where there's nothing left for me to stitch. And no, that doesn't mean it's finished. I will explain. So this is where we're at. The lighting in here is getting a bit weird. The sun is kind of creeping up on me, so hopefully it won't be a problem. But for anyone who has been watching me since I started on this one, I think earlier in the year I said I was gonna, every time I finished a book in the oh my gosh, what's it called? The Fourth Wing series. I was going to stitch, so Books was going to be Fourth Wing. The next book, which says R, was going to be, I can't remember. But yeah, basically there were 3 books left, and I was going to stitch 1 for each book in the series. I got so engrossed in that series that I just like blazed through it in a ridiculous amount of time, and didn't want to, like, I was engrossed in whatever I was stitching at the time, so didn't want to put that down. So instead, when I finished that series, I stitched books, and when I finish another book series, I will stitch the next one, and then another series, I'll stitch the next one. And this first one, actually, I stitched when I finished re-listening to a Maria Snyder series, so I kind of like the idea of each book in the stack being a series rather than 1 book. That seemed a bit more manageable than, I mean, I go through books quite quickly. What I don't want to do, though, is rush going through books just for the sake of being able to carry on stitching on this, because it won. So I think the first time it won in round 1, I stitched these sort of 3 pink feathery bits. when it won in round 2, I stitched the 2 butterflies and finished those off. And then this time when it won in round 3, I added these 2 stars. Other than the books, the only other thing really left is there's quite a lot of back stitching and French knots and like general sort of swirly bits. But I think I want to do those in a metallic or sparkly thread. I don't know, something a bit special, and I haven't yet figured out what. I did Saturday, I don't know, sometime over this weekend I went to Hobbycraft and I did purchase this, which hopefully, even though it's not focusing, can I make it focus? I still haven't figured this out. I need to do some testing. Not working? No. But hopefully even with it unfocused you can tell it's quite sparkly. It's also got like a pastel variation, kind of pinks, blues and silvers, so I thought that would be really pretty. But at the point in time where this was happening, I did not have that thread ready. So although this won and I stitched on it for round 3, I have then retired it from the competition, or blinding myself with the reflection of that pattern. And therefore Gamer, even though it lost, kind of carried on to the next round. Because it kind of needed to, because otherwise I'd have a gap, or Books on Magic would keep winning and I'd keep not being able to stitch on it. So Gamer moved on. The next pairing was the Greenhouse of Oddities versus Twisted Band Sampler, and this was another one that literally all day it was going back and forth which was in the lead. I am really I am quite sad that Twisted Band didn't win. I have finished digitizing it and like sort of marking off what I've already done. Was slightly horrified that I feel like I've gone quite far on this. It's only 11%. I mean, I'm finished with 4 colours now, I think. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so what I did on this, I think since you last saw it, was finish off this cross stitch band. I think I'd already finished half of this specialty stitch band, but that means I finished that colour, which was 727. So I'm now 4 colours in and it's a 17 colour project. So I think in my head I had it that I was going to be like, I don't know, like, I guess it's not that far off, like 15 to 20% was what I had in my mind, because my brain doesn't want to do that maths. But I thought I was further along than I am in terms of numbers, but this is about 11% done. Again though, I think that this will hopefully go a bit faster now that I've got it digitized. I don't find the specialty stitches that much of a challenge when it's from the paper pattern, because I'm having to look at the how to do it. But once I've done a couple of a stitch and you get like into a rhythm of like what order to do them in and how to move from one iteration of that stitch to the next one, I kind of don't need to look at the pattern anymore. I'll just keep going. The cross stitch though I was finding quite hard to do from the paper pattern, so I think those bands will hopefully go faster now that I can track and mark that off digitally. I have to say, it's one of my favourite project bags. It's a Turtle Bay Textiles one with my little turtle keyring that I got from our open day. I love that one. Every time I get it out it makes me smile. Okay, so Greenhouse in that case was the one that moved on and Twisted Band got knocked out. Next up we had Cabin in the Woods versus Love. So Love was the one that was knocked out. Let me grab this out. So I think again, this is the downside with like these big full coverages, is I probably put like 200 stitches in this and it looks no different. I think again I've just been carrying on with this sort of purple band, some sort of purple swirl in the sky. I think I was finding this quite hard to work on but I think it's just because I've still not figured out my thread management for it. What I did do, which I'm really happy with and I think is really pretty, is starting to put them on floss drops, spare Annie's keepers that I've got now that my DMC master set is all stickered up, and having 15 on one of these little loop things, the squishy, I don't know what to call them, like they're like binder rings but with a little carabiner lock thing. And then it occurred to me that if there's 15 on here, I can braid them together in sets of 3, and it just means that this is much like I can pull a thread still just from one of these without having to undo anything, and it just stops them getting tangled, it stops them getting chaotic. So this I think is working for me, and I've got the start of my next set, the ones that I had pulled and put onto floss drops. For some reason I've done like random sporadic ones rather than doing them all in order. I don't remember why, but at some point I essentially just need to sit down and get organised and get all of these onto floss drops, and then I think I will find this easier to work on. At the moment there's like scattered stitches in here that I've missed out, but they're like numbers in the 70s and 80s where I've not even like unfolded and cut the thread, let alone put them onto floss drops. So like I can't be bothered to dig out that one colour of thread and do all of that prep just to do one stitch, so I'm just leaving it, but then it's bothering me. I'm struggling. So I definitely need like a floss storage sesh, I guess. So the last match of round 3 was Cross Stitch Makes Everything Okayer versus the Double Hoop Owl. This one actually was another actual tie. So yeah, I think I didn't want to just keep being my choice, so I gave John the choice this time, and he picked the owl, which I was really happy with because I actually I'm a bit obsessed with it. I'm gonna get back to stitching that maybe even this weekend, but it means that this one got knocked out. But what I did before it got knocked out was carry on. I think I got I can't actually remember. This is how far I got. So I'm almost done with the text, just the rest of the O and makes to go in here. This is another one that I've digitized from a paper pan so that I can stitch it in Pattern Keeper. And I promised I'd show this ridiculous wedge of stuff. So there's threads in here that are for a project that I've already finished that really doesn't need to be in there anymore. Is there another one? No. There are literally like 7 patterns and pieces of fabric with varying whips on at various stages of completion. One of them is just drawn on and I've not even actually started it. It's chaos. And then we've got threads and a little tin with scissors and needles in here. I really want to, I don't need to, but I really want to maybe give these some focus over the next month and try and get some of them finished, because they're not big projects, they wouldn't take long. Oh, that's my meta cross stitch, meta project bag to go with my meta cross stitch theme. Okay, that was round 3. So we at this point are down to 4 projects. So updated bracket here. So our 4 semi-finalists, I guess, are Gamer, Greenhouse of Oddities, Gamer Nouveau, Greenhouse of Oddities, Cabin in the Woods, and the Owl Hoop. So the first of those pairings was Gamer Nouveau versus the Greenhouse. As you can see here, Greenhouse won by a comfortable margin. I am kind of sad the Gamer got knocked out, but I mean, it's gotten a lot of love this year already, and I have been really enjoying Greenhouse. So at this point, I really loved all 4 of these projects, so it was kind of much of a muchness to me which ones went through, and it was really fun seeing what other people picked. In terms of progress on Gamer, I'm trying to remember where I worked on this most recently. I genuinely couldn't tell you. I think I was conscious that if the banner's there at the bottom, you won't be able to see it. So in that sort of purple area in the middle, just under the word gamer, I think I was picking colours in there and working them across. I think this probably only got like, this would have been the end of last week, so probably only got like the bare minimum 100, 150 stitches in, and because they're sort of scattered out, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell if I showed, like, did a side by side of how it looked before. I will come back to gamer though. I will talk some more about that in a little bit. So let's put that on the other side. Yeah, so that means that Greenhouse went through to the final, so we'll come back to that one in a second. The second semi-final was Cabin in the Woods versus the Owl Hoop. I genuinely was really enjoying both of these. They're both 1/1 on a high count aida. I think they're both on 18 count, but they're both hand dyed, so they're both probably more like a 19 count. But it's my go-to at the moment is that 1/1 on aida. So really enjoyed this. Having magnet chaos. But Cabin in the Woods won, and I can see why. Like, it's won all the way through, but it didn't actually start getting stitched on until the second to last, so I can see why people wanted that one to carry on. This is where I got to with the owl though, and I think I hadn't quite clocked that this is how big it's going to be. It's actually really small. I think in the pictures in my head it looks like it's going to be huge, and I guess that's in part because I've done it on 18 count rather than 14 like the model. But I'm gonna have to track down a very small hoop to do that centerpiece. I was really doubting my choice of fabric because the blues sort of, not so much these darker blues, but a lot of these like leafy bits, I was worried they were like blending in too much, but adding in that backstitch just blah. And I think like even without the backstitch, this rose is like, I love it. I don't often see patterns in a magazine that I'm like, I need that in my life, but this was one of them, and I'm really glad that I did it. And again, this is one that I've digitized so that I can stitch it from Cross Stitch Saga and like mark off the back stitch and mark off the regular stitches as well. So really enjoying this, and I will definitely be coming back to this. That brings us on to the final. We had the Greenhouse of Oddities versus Cabin in the Woods. This yo-yoed again all day. I kind of wish that Instagram gave you like the timestamps of when people voted, because it would be really cool to like plot a little chart of how it went up and down during the day. But again, I've been really enjoying both of these. Like, I'd only stitched I think one day, maybe 2 days on Cabin in the Woods at this point because of all of the re-dye loops that we went through. So I was really enjoying that, but also Greenhouse I think is something that I started, it was my last start on New Year's Eve 12 by 12, and I think it was quite an impromptu last second decision to do it 1/1, and I think ever since I've been like, why did I do that? I'm gonna hate working on it. It's on linen, it's 32 count, they're not your go-tos. What were you thinking? But I really enjoyed that doing this forced me to get it back out and actually give it a go. So I would have been happy with either of these, but in the end Cabin in the Woods was triumphant, and I did let the story completely time out so that there was no like, if I'd left it a few minutes longer someone else might have voted and swung it back the other way. So Cabin in the Woods got some amazing wrap on there. So considering at the start of the month all I had was a little bit of this twiddly fancy ironwork and I don't think even the bird, I think he got added during this month too. I have come quite a long way on this. So I got down, I wanted to not just spend the month stitching these curved lines and worrying that they weren't going to match up. So I just stitched this one and I counted it and recounted it about 6 times to be confident it was correct. I got down to where there was some greenery, so this is part of the first planting. And then I stopped working on the black framework and stitched all of this, so that this essentially counted down to the bottom for me and I could just stitch the black down to wherever it needed to go to compared to the green. From there I've just kind of been working randomly, so I'm not really stitching this in planting order, I'm just winging it. I think I've also decided I'm not going to stitch the figures, so I think I know there's 2 different versions and I can't remember who they're meant to be, but there's a guy kneeling and looking at a plant on this side, and there's a woman stood with an easel doing some painting. One of the extras that was given at the end of this stitch along was a sort of standalone little terrarium, so I think my plan is to take some small elements from that to fill in the space for the guy that's going to be missing, because that will just be a big chunk of empty space. I think for the woman I might just not stitch the woman but stitch the easel, so it's almost like it's there waiting for someone to come back to, but I'm not sure yet. I started this alongside Emma from Emma X Stitching and Joe from Belushi Stitches, and I'm actually seeing Emma next week at the Ladybird retreat. I think Joe unfortunately couldn't make it, so I'm going to definitely take this along and do some more stitching on it, but I'm just going to carry on stitching wherever I feel like. But I am really grateful that doing March Madness has gotten me past my this is scary and intense and hard work. I really love the teeny tiny stitches. It's really satisfying. Like, this is the bottom, so this is like the whole height of it. Again, hand for scale, it's going to be shorter than my hand, and probably not much longer than my hand, to be fair. So yeah, really love this. And something else I saw, so at the Itching for Stitching retreat I went to, was that only a month ago? I think it was the start of March. Yeah, because it was just before my birthday, so it's not even a whole month ago. The Itching for Stitching retreat, one of the organisers, Melanie, brought her finish of this along, and she's stitched it on a, I'm not sure if it's printed or somehow other, I don't know, but the fabric she had a big white circle in the middle, or cream circle to represent the moon, and I really like that, so I'm possibly considering the slightly insane idea that once I'm done stitching this I might fill in all of the sort of empty space up here in a circle to stitch a moon. That sort of, I think why it looked really nice was it kind of went behind the greenhouse, so it really gave that vibe that the greenhouse was see-through and glass and that you could see the moon through it. Hers was like quite a big moon. It kind of covered like a big circle. I think I might have to do a smaller one just because I've not left, I mean I've left enough, but I've not left tons for a moon to come further up towards the edge. There may be something just off to the side here. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I'm glad it got as far as it did, because I was excited to work on it every single time it went through, and I will be stitching on it again very soon for sure. So that just leaves us with the winner, so Cabin in the Woods. As I said, I'm going to unroll the fabric because I do want to show it off. So like I said, this took 3 attempts, and in retrospect I didn't even realise how small, like this is the whole height of the stitching, so all of that fabric at the bottom is basically just, yeah, it's going to be gone. The vibe I was going for with this was like a sort of sunrise breaking through the dark sky kind of thing. The fabric was originally a sort of mottled orange on a white background, and I overdyed it with the blue. And then I tried to hand paint the sort of oranges and reds Rit dye into the gaps, but the way I did it meant that it just didn't, it came out very pastel, so I did it again with a slightly different technique and left it for longer, and I'm really happy with how it's come out. If I roll it back up and show you a bit closer, I'm actually really, really obsessed with how this is coming out. Oh, so I had started this, it's like the land that the trees are planted on, but realised I had miscounted, so I've ripped that out today to be restitched. But I just love how this sort of mottling is quite subtle behind it. And I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but the stars I have started doing in another one of these Gutermann metallic threads. So this one's a very sort of bronzy kind of copper colour. Copper is definitely the word I was looking for. So all of those stars are just that bit shiny. They don't really show up brilliantly on the camera, but they do have like a proper little shine to them. So I'm really, really like enjoying this, and I'm really glad that it kept winning and it pushed me to do that hand dyeing, because God knows how long it would have taken me if I'd just been left to my own devices. And considering all of that stitching has happened since, I took it with me to my conference, and it was when I needed some decompressed time, I went back to my room in the hotel and sat and just put one length of thread in as like I guess almost a decompress and a little bit of a relax and stitchy meditation time, I guess. So that was March Madness. I've kind of done some reflecting on it as we've gone. It was very chaotic. My normal stitching approach is like 2 to 3 weeks working on a project, not like strictly monogamously, but just because it's what's out, and I kind of want to carry on from where I left off the day before. And after 2 or 3 weeks, I'll pick a different project, and if I have a day where I'm going out and I want something small to take with me and my current focus project isn't small, I'll just pick something else and work on that for a day, come back and carry on with the focus. So kind of much more stable. I did find this a challenge. I think maybe with work happening to ramp up during March, it was just not brilliant timing. I think the fact that I needed to have projects out to take photos for the next day, and then I had the winner for today, and like it just meant that at times I'd have like 5 or 6 projects out, and then with the week of birthday starts as well, like there was just too much stuff out, and it just meant that I found it really hard to just sit down and pick up what I was working on and just have that like zen zone out time, which probably in turn didn't help with how intense work felt. So it was a lot. I'm glad I only set myself the really low target of 100 stitches. And I think when I did that, I had in mind that if I wasn't feeling a project, I would do that 100 stitches and then be like, I'm going to put this aside and work on whatever interests me. I thought I would have a focus project alongside doing all of this chaos. That is not what happened at all. There were days where I'd do the 100 stitch and be like, I just don't want to touch stitching. So I guess that's a lesson learned. If I do this again, I don't want it to be quite so intense. And there are ways I could do that, like instead of like getting out my current progress and taking photos, just showing photos, like cover photos of how they will look for the voting, I think would help, and that way I only have to have today's winner out at any given time. It did, however, push me to work on projects that I'd been neglecting, and like I said, with Greenhouse, Twisted Band is another one that I'd been putting off, and doing this pushed me to do the digitizing and get it going. I'd been putting off dyeing the fabric for Cabin in the Woods. So there are loads of projects that I got out and got really stuck into and really enjoyed that I otherwise would have continued to ignore. So I've genuinely fallen in love with projects that I've just not touched for months. So I really love that about it, and I definitely want to keep that part of it, I guess, if I do this again in future. I think what I currently have in mind, I do want to do it again. I keep saying if I do it again, but I do plan to do this again. I think what I'll do next time is, instead of doing all 32 of my whips, I would just do 16, so that those 16 get a little bit more attention. And maybe I do like, I guess it's not that far off what I did, but instead of having a vote between two projects at the start of the month to pick which 16 then got worked on, I would just pick the 16 to be worked on, and they would get worked on. Much more like Beth, for example, Stitch with Beth, or Beth Chadwick here. She did it where she would stitch on project 1 and project 2 for a day each and then put them up for a vote. I think that is more the vibe I'm going to go for. So starting with 16. So it will basically pan out the same way, but just there wouldn't be everyday votes for that first 2 weeks. I think I probably wouldn't do a birthday, the ridiculous 7 birthday starts in a week on top of doing March Madness. That was bonkers. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. I mean, I enjoyed it. I love all the patterns I started. Did I need to work on 2 different projects every day for a week? No, I did not. Not doing that again. I think the other thing that I would do next time, especially if I'm doing 16 rather than 32, is instead of picking ones that I want to work on because I'm already enjoying them, I would, because I track all of my stitching on Notion, it's really easy to see like when I last worked on each project. I think what I'm going to do is pick the 16 that I haven't touched for the longest, if that makes sense. So like the ones that I've worked on least recently. And hopefully that will give me what I've enjoyed about this, which is getting out projects that I've not looked at for ages and remembering how much I love them. And who knows, maybe that will mean that I also get some out that I stitch on and sort of go, there's a reason I didn't work on this for ages, and maybe that will help me with UFOing and letting go of projects that I just don't want or need to have around anymore. But yeah, I mean, all in all, I enjoyed it. I will do it again. I just want to make tweaks so that it's a little bit less intense. Yeah, I think that's it for the stitching, to be honest. The only thing I have left to talk to you about is some plans. So, planning to carry on working on Cabin in the Woods in April. I think from memory this is 8,000 and something stitches, and I think I'm already like 10% in. I think with how much I stitch, there is a semi-decent chance I'm just going to get this done during April. Depends how long I stick with it. It's a really nice one because there's not that many colours. I think this is most of the colours. It's a really unappealing way of showing them, Jess. So I think there's maybe 1 or 2 that I don't currently have on Flosstube that I need to prep. So yeah, really enjoying this. I'm enjoying adding the sparkles. I'm looking forward, I think obviously the cabin itself and this bar across the bottom are quite dense, so maybe that will feel like it's slowing me down a bit, but for now, really enjoying this, planning to carry on with it. Other things happening. So tomorrow and Saturday, although I don't know when this is going to go up, so maybe it was yesterday from when you're listening, I don't know. Soph is coming up to visit me. She's coming to stay for a night. We're going to the Birmingham Stitchy morning, which is completely free if you're in the Birmingham area or if you can get to Birmingham easily. It's in the Exchange Cafe in Birmingham. Let me know if you want details, and I can send you details for the Facebook group where they're organised. But yeah, so she's coming up. We're going to the Stitchy Morning. We're also going to Spellbound Beads because I have been a bad influence and talked her into doing a fully beaded project. So she's coming prepared with a pattern that she likes the look of. We're going to go to Spellbound Beads and pick those out for her. And because I know I'm going to Spellbound Beads, I may or may not have created myself a not so short shopping list of things that I might consider getting for myself for some future beaded projects. So that's exciting. I've already mentioned I've got the Ladybird retreat next weekend as well, so I'm really looking forward to that. Other things that I've sort of got on my radar of things that I want to do rather than stuff that's happening. I've got a project bag with a bunch of finishes in there upstairs at the moment, but I just need to get around to doing some FFOing. Like, some of them are for my Meta cross stitch wall, and I've got enough now that they justify going up on the wall. I just need to put them in frames, basically. I've got a couple of cushions, like where I finished the stitching, I just need to make them into a little cushion and stuff them. So I'm hoping to have a little bit of an FFOing spree over the next week, because they won't take long. I just need to crack on with it. I'm still planning to do a top-down tutorial video thing to show how I stitch in hand. I just have not got around to the logistics. With all the other chaos going on the past month, I've just not got around to figuring out how to set that up, so that you guys can see how I stitch, and I can sort of give some tips on why I use the different techniques I do. I've talked several times about doing Monogamous May. I am still planning to do that, and that is where Gamer comes back in. I was going to do Monogamous May with whichever project won March Madness. What I've realised though is, whereas March Madness was pushing me to have more variety and stitch on different things every day, I think I want Monogamous May to be the opposite and push me to like stick with something for a little bit longer than normal. But to do that, I need something that's big enough that I can stitch on it for a whole month without like running out of project. And I think, as I said, Cabin in the Woods is only sort of 8,000 to 9,000 stitches, and I think from memory from last year I average about 15,000 stitches a month, so I would just run out partway through the month, and the whole point of stitching on the same thing for that long would be a moot point. The same goes for the runner-up. So Greenhouse I think is about 15,000, but I'm already about 1,000 stitches in, so again it would be tight, but also it's 1 over 1 on 32 count. I don't know if I could go a whole month just stitching 1 over 1 on 32 count. So of the sort of the third and fourth place, Gamer versus the Owl, which is another 8-ish thousand. Gamer is basically the project that got the furthest and is big enough. So this is going to be what I do for March Madness. I guess it has the added benefit that it's got different, like, very distinct areas, so if I need something mindless I can just fill in background with a single colour. Like if I'm, like, I know I've got a hair appointment at the start of May, like I'm questioning whether I'm insane for doing this, but I could take this to my hair appointment and stitch on this top part and only have to take the one thread, and it wouldn't be a hassle. But then if I want more interesting stuff, there's lots of different elements with different colour schemes, so I can kind of jump around and not get bored of working on the same colour the whole time. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I will probably be back around Easter, so in about 2.5 weeks, just because it's the next time I have weekend time free to get everything out and get organised. Yeah, I always get to the end and I'm like, what now? What do I say? I mean, it does get easier, but at the same time, being socially awkward. Maybe Flosstube gets easier, being socially awkward. It's always socially awkward. Thank you for listening to me waffle, if you've made it this far. I hope you've enjoyed seeing the March Madness projects, but I hope for those of you who follow me on Instagram, I hope you enjoyed voting. I definitely had a couple of people message me and be like that they would vote, but then they would go back because they were really invested in whether the one that they wanted to win had won. So people were like checking back to see who was like which project was in the lead. So it was really cool to know that other people were enjoying that and sort of enjoying participating in choosing what went ahead. I hope you've enjoyed this update. I hope you have gotten lots of stitching done, or whatever it is you've been doing whilst you've been listening and watching. And I will be back in a few weeks. Bye!